The question was, is there any other suspects? That's part of the ongoing investigation. At this time, we have one identified suspect in custody. Yes, sir.
Our sources tell us there was a loan gun that was used, and the loan gun that was used was a ghost gun. Can you all confirm that? And also, there's another firearm in this that apparently was bought illegally from an unlicensed dealer in Florida. Can you comment on that as well?
So the question was about the information that there was a long gun involved, as well as another firearm, and the sources of those firearms. That is also part of the ongoing investigation. And at this point in time, it'd be inappropriate for us to comment on where those were found and where they were obtained from. Yes?
The preliminary charges include bias charges, and many people in the local LGBTQ community would like to understand the motivation behind this incident. Can you articulate what prompted those specific charges, or can you speak to the shooter's motivations here?
Okay, so the question was twofold. One, about the charges of the bias charges, and then one about the motivation. I can tell you that motivation is obviously a part of every criminal investigation that we do. That is part of the current investigation. I can't speak any further about any motive. And then the second part regarding the charges, I'll hand over to our district attorney, Mr. Allen.
So a quirk in criminal law is that we don't have to prove, when we go to a court, we don't have to prove motive, but obviously we're all humans and we want to know what caused somebody to go in and do something as horrific as this. So that's why we just heard from the PIO that's being investigated. It's important that if we have enough evidence to support bias-motivated crimes, to charge that. It's important for this community. It's important for the prosecution effort to show why something happened. And if there's enough evidence to support that in this case, when we get to the formal filing charges, we will absolutely be including those charges here as well. But I want to also be clear that the bias-motivated statute in Colorado, the highest level charge that we can get with that charge is a Class 4 felony. We're obviously talking about 5 people that were killed. Their lives were ended. Those are going to be the top-end charges in this case, without a doubt. Those charges will likely carry life in prison without parole, whereas the Class 4 felonies are probation-eligible offenses. So those do not in any way elevate the potential sentence in a case like this, but it is important to let the community know that we do not tolerate bias-motivated crimes in this community, that we support communities that have been maligned, harassed, and intimidated and abused, and that's one way that we can do that, showing that we will put the money where our mouth is, essentially, and make sure that we try it that way. So I hope that answered your question, but we're going to absolutely be reviewing it for formal charges along those same lines.
Yes, sir.
Is the U.S. Attorney's Office going to be charging the suspect with federal hate crimes?
So the question is the U.S. Attorney's Office going to be charging federal hate crimes? Mr. Finnegan?
Thank you for your question. There's an ongoing investigation, and we really can't comment further at this time, but we are reviewing all the facts. We're reviewing all the information that we have, and we're working closely with the District Attorney's Office, with the FBI, with ATF, and with Chief Vasquez and his department. So I just want to reiterate and reaffirm that the Department of Justice is looking at all aspects of this case. Thank you.
Any previous threats to
The question was, were there any previous threats to the club? I think we have very clearly said that this club was a safe haven in our community, and that's something to be respected and honored. I want it to be very clear that this club, from the police department's perspective, was no issue. We had a good relationship with them. There weren't issues at this club. As far as if there were prior threats, again, that would be part of any investigation and would be a part of this investigation.
Have investigators been looking into social media posts, online writings, any violent tendencies specifically towards LGBTQ?
Yeah, so this is similar to the question of past history, motive, but specific to social media. In this day and age, social media is where everybody's at, so of course we're looking at social media in every investigation that we do, whether that be from a very basic patrol investigation all the way up to the most significant.
Were we able to actually confirm the shooter is also the person we have all been talking about from last year, this bomb threat?
The question is that is the shooter from today, or from not today, from the Club Q incident, the same individual as, I believe, the bomb threat you said, sir?
Same name.
I'm going to let Mr. Allen answer that.
Spencer, good question, but it's a question that we cannot answer at this time for the reasons I gave earlier.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Melissa Henry with KUSA. If hypothetically this suspect did have a prior criminal history and those documents were sealed at this time, this might be for District Attorney Allen, what process would have to be gone through and who would be responsible for getting those documents unsealed, and is that something your office is interested in pursuing?
The question was, if they're under Colorado law, if something is sealed, what is the process to unseal them?
So I'm going to answer this question in very general terms, not as it relates to this case, and I hope that will satisfy what you're driving at. Generally speaking, if a case gets dismissed and then a person commits a subsequent offense, it's very common that we can look back at that prior offense to see if there's some connection to that prior offense to the current offense. We do that in almost every case where somebody has a prior. Sometimes we will try to use that prior incident in the new case. To do that, we have to file motions, 404B, which is prior bad acts motions. If it's appropriate to do that in a case like this, then we will do that, absolutely.
Would that motion be public record, and what timeline would that happen?
Too premature to tell what timeline that may or may not be on for the reasons that I stated earlier as it relates to this specific incident and what you're asking about. But it should be available publicly if a motion is filed along the lines that you're describing.
We have been watching that press conference live for about 35 minutes now from down in Colorado Springs after 22 people were shot around midnight Saturday night into Sunday morning down at Club Q in Colorado Springs. 5 of those 22 people died, and while the investigation and the aspects of the investigation, we have not learned very much in that news conference. We did learn about those 5 victims.
And so many people have wanted to learn more because, of course, there's been a lot of discussion about who this shooter was, who is hospitalized, was taken into custody, and charges, and they're not going to release anything right now. They're not even going to talk about the possibility of the charges at this point. What they really want us to talk about, though, are the victims, and they did just release their names and their photos that the families wanted us to remember. Kelly Loving, Daniel Aston, Derrick Rump, Ashley Paugh, Raymond, Green, Vance, and they are the people they want us to focus on, as well as the 2 heroes that were inside.
Yeah, Thomas James and Richard Fierro identified as the 2 who interrupted the shooter, and in just a minute did shoot 22 people, but so many more people could have been in harm's way were it not for the heroic acts of those 2 who took down that shooter and stopped the horror. And the Club Q story will go on. I think for many people, that was a frustrating news conference, though, as far as law enforcement and the like, really not being able to come forward with more detail. But they are clearly going to go very slowly with what they have and how they're going to go about sharing it. But for those 22 people who suffered gunshot wounds, and there were also a couple of other victims, one wounded but not shot, another one with no visible injuries, and they say they expect more of those people to come forward and ask them to come forward as well, to get in touch with the FBI at 1-800-CALL-FBI if you were one of those people who was in Club Q and was injured. They want to hear from you, or if you have video or any account of what did in fact take place that night.
They said even driving by possibly could have provided them the evidence. I think part of the frustration with this is that so many people are at this point where this happens so often. We want answers and we want to know what, if anything, could have been done to prevent this. And so we're going to wait.
Yeah, this is where we stand as we start 4 o'clock at 9 News.
Today, we are learning more about the 5 people that were shot inside what was a safe space for the LGBTQ community in Colorado Springs. The 5 who died late Saturday night into Sunday morning, and 17 others also shot.
And now by their names and by their photographs released by Colorado Springs Police, these are the 5 who died. Kelly Loving, Raymond Vance, as well as Ashley Paugh, and Daniel Aston. Derrick Rump also killed that night. Paugh was a mother and wife. Family said she had a huge heart. She loved her family and kids. Her family said she worked for the Kids Crossing, a nonprofit for foster children. This is Daniel Aston.
Yeah, and friends called him the master of silly business. He liked to make people laugh. His family says he was a bartender and entertainer. This is Derrick Rump, also a bartender who was killed that night. He was friends with Daniel. Friends say he was always trying to make others feel comfortable. We're working to learn more about Kelly Loving and Raymond Vance. Police say 2 people inside that bar fought and stopped the accused shooter in this case, Anderson Aldrich, moments after the shooting started. The suspect did have a prior run-in with police. His mother told him he threatened to blow up, told others that he threatened to blow up the home. He told police that. We'll have more on the suspect and why the state's red flag law wasn't used against him. That's all coming up. The mother of Daniel Aston says her son was a happy child who loved to laugh. Sabrina says her son loved being a bartender at Club Q.
It's just a nightmare that you can't wake up from. And I keep thinking it's it's a mistake. They've made a mistake. And, these young people, and well, not all of them are young, they don't hurt anybody. They're just normal folk. Most of them have day jobs, and I just don't understand why it would hurt anybody. It doesn't hurt anybody.
Aston also said legislators must take action to prevent future tragedies, though she did not explain what she'd like to see happen. President Biden called Democratic Governor Jared Polis today as well to share his support for Colorado and offered help from the federal government. Saturday's shooting left 17 people shot, in addition to the 5 people who were killed, and many are still recovering in the hospital. Others were allowed to go home.
Yeah, our 9 News reporter Jaleesa Irizarry has been able to speak with some of them today. And Jaleesa, tell us what you've learned as far as how they're doing.
Well, Kim and Tom, physically and emotionally, many of these people have a long road to recovery, but the 2 that I spoke with were strong enough to share what happened at night. So much has been added to North Academy Boulevard, but nothing can replace what's been lost.
So many people down. So much damage.
Jericho Lovell knows that.
So much blood, and you don't know what you can do or what you should do. But I lost a big part of myself with everything that happened Saturday night.
Jericho says he was one of the many inside Club Q when a gunman walked in.
You hear shots, you feel the heat coming past you, glass around you shattering. I went to get up and the bartender yells at me to get down. The firing stops and I stand up to try and find everybody I was with.
Jericho found many of those people outside. He also found he was hurt.
I thought it was maybe just a scratch from falling or glass that is there from the fall. but the officer wrapped it up and said, you need to get to the hospital. It looks like a gunshot wound.
Jericho says it was a through and through gunshot wound, and he was able to be released in a matter of hours. But down the road at Memorial Hospital, Ed Sanders wasn't so lucky.
I got hit in the back first, and I turned around and saw him, and it was very fast. 2 volleys at us, and the second one got my leg, and then I went down.
Ed had surgery on his injuries on Sunday and is still recovering, but he knows a piece of him will always be lost.
Club Q is like a family to me. I'm still in shock. I think it hasn't really sunk in that these people are gone.
I asked both Ed and Jericho if they would ever step foot in Club Q again, and without hesitation, they both said yes. The sooner, the better. Kim and Tom?
All right, Jaleesa, we'll get back to you for more on this throughout the afternoon. There are several ways you can help the victims and people most impacted by the Club Q shooting. If you want to donate, the Colorado Healing Fund has also been activated. That's a method to donate in a secure way that will go to the people impacted and their community's long-term recovery. There's more details on that at 9news.com. Vitalant also sending blood to hospitals in Colorado Springs, trying to help victims, and they're asking people to give blood over the next few days. It could save someone's life in an emergency. You can make an appointment on the Vitalant website.